They say in business, loyalty is priceless. But for some, it's disposable. She gave 15 years of her life to the company she built from the ground up. She turned ideas into empires, dreams into dollars, and people into family. But one ordinary Friday afternoon, that same family turned on her. They accused her of fraud, framed her for millions, destroyed her career, and walked her out of the building like a criminal. What they didn't know is that she wasn't walking away. She was walking into her plan. Because beneath the silence, she was rebuilding her power. And when she returned, she didn't just get revenge. She owned everything they stole. It was a Friday afternoon, 4:12 p.m. to be exact, when they escorted her out. Security, HR, the quiet, uncomfortable shuffle of betrayal wrapped in corporate politeness. After 15 years of loyalty, it ended with a walk to the elevator. Her name was Claire Donovan, 38 years old. Chief Financial Officer at Virion Technologies, a company she'd helped build from nothing. In the reflection of the glass doors, she saw herself, confident, composed, but hollow-eyed. The kind of calm that only comes when your entire world has just collapsed and you're too stunned to scream. The HR director avoided her gaze. The security guard, a young man who clearly felt awful, muttered, "Sorry about this, Ms. Donovan. Just following protocol." She smiled faintly. "Don't worry. I understand." But she didn't. Not yet. Because this wasn't about mistakes or company restructuring. This was betrayal, deliberate, cold, and calculated. Claire had joined Virion Technologies when it was just a dream. A rented office in downtown Austin, 3 desks, and one crazy idea: using predictive data to revolutionize logistics. Ethan Reed, the founder, was the visionary, a charming, fast-talking entrepreneur with a Stanford degree and an ego to match. Claire was the brain behind the numbers. She managed the finances, secured investors, negotiated contracts. She was the reason the company survived its first 5 years. Together, they'd been unstoppable. But success changes people. And when money and recognition poured in, so did the greed. That morning, everything seemed normal. Claire had been reviewing quarterly reports, preparing for a board meeting, sipping coffee from her favorite mug, the one Ethan had given her years ago with the words "numbers don't lie" printed on it. She didn't know that by the end of that day, those same numbers would be twisted into a noose around her neck. At 10:42 a.m. Ethan walked in. He wasn't alone. With him was Jessica Morrow, head of HR, and Daniel Royce, company legal counsel. Claire frowned. This looks serious. Ethan didn't meet her eyes. "Claire," he began, "we've discovered discrepancies in the financial audit. Significant ones." She blinked. "Discrepancies? The board believes you've been manipulating quarterly figures, inflating bonuses, misreporting revenue to improve stock perception." The words hit her like a physical blow. "What are you talking about? You think I've been falsifying data?" Ethan sighed. "The evidence is concerning." "Evidence?" she repeated. "What evidence?" Daniel slid a folder across the table. Inside, documents she'd never seen before. Her signature. Her authorization codes. Transfers she didn't remember approving. It was a perfect setup. By 11 a.m., her company badge had been deactivated. By 1 p.m., her termination letter was in her inbox. By 4 p.m., she was out the door. 8 years of trust, gone. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just walked out, numb, while whispers followed her like shadows. That night, alone in her apartment, she watched her reputation collapse in real time. Virion CFO under investigation for fraud. Her face, smiling, confident, from a conference photo, plastered across every business site. The comments burned. She had it coming. Typical corporate greed. Another exec stealing from her own company. Claire stared at the screen until her vision blurred. Then she whispered, "They're not taking me down for something I didn't do." And that's when the revenge began. 2 weeks before her firing, Claire had noticed strange transfers in the system. Tiny, unremarkable amounts at first, 50,000 here, 200,000 there. Then suddenly, millions. Funds routed to a shell company called Litton Partners LLC. When she traced it, the trail led offshore, to a holding entity in the Cayman Islands. But what froze her blood was the signature. Her own. Except, she'd never signed it. Virion used DocuChain, a blockchain-based digital signing system she herself had implemented. Every signature had a cryptographic timestamp. And those timestamps proved the signatures were forged from a different device, Ethan's device. She'd discovered it. He'd discovered she'd discovered it. And that's when the framing began. She could have gone public, but she knew better. When you go against powerful men, truth isn't enough. You need strategy. For the next 6 weeks, Claire vanished. Deleted her social accounts. Closed her email. The world thought she'd run away in shame. But in reality, she was quietly rebuilding her arsenal. She rented a small workspace downtown under the alias Lena Dre. She hired a private cybersecurity firm, a retired auditor, a forensic accountant, and together they began untangling the web. Every wire transfer, every ghost account, every falsified report. Piece by piece, the truth came together. Ethan had embezzled $38.6 million through fake subsidiaries, all under Claire's digital authorization. It wasn't just greed, it was survival. Because Ethan had leveraged everything, his house, his stock, his reputation, for a high-risk acquisition deal that went bad. He needed a scapegoat, and Claire was perfect, loyal, visible, and trusting. Claire's only mistake was trusting too many people. Now she needed to find just one she could trust again. That person was Jordan Lee, a systems engineer who'd been quietly fired 6 months earlier after raising concerns about Virion's cybersecurity lapses. Jordan still had access, backups, logs, and even fragments of Ethan's private Slack messages. When Claire showed up at his doorstep, he froze. "Claire Donovan? They said you were gone," she finished. "They lied." He let her in. And that night, they began reconstructing Ethan's communications from encrypted backups. They found everything. Messages between Ethan and 2 board members, Harold Vance and Naomi Lyle, plotting to shift money offshore and blame the CFO audit failure if regulators asked questions. Claire stared at the screen, heart pounding. It wasn't just betrayal. It was conspiracy. 3 months after her firing, Ethan thought he'd won. Virion's board had moved on. They'd appointed a new CFO, Dana McAllister, a woman known for discreetly fixing messy books. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming. Employee morale collapsed. Investors started whispering. The stock dropped 22%. Then an anonymous source leaked financial inconsistencies to the Atlantic Ledger, a national investigative outlet. The article hinted at massive discrepancies in Virion's offshore accounting, but didn't name names. Ethan panicked. He called a crisis PR firm, issued denials, and blamed Claire again. But the article had one detail he didn't expect: screenshots of emails only he could have written. Claire watched from her apartment as the chaos unfolded. Every denial, every statement he made only made him look guiltier. That's when she launched the final phase of her plan. She created Serenium Holdings, a private equity firm with 2 silent partners, both ex-Virion executives Ethan had betrayed. Through proxies, Serenium began quietly buying Virion stock. Little by little. By the time Ethan realized what was happening, Serenium already owned 34%. Then they made an offer, $680 million to acquire Virion Technologies outright. Ethan thought he was saving his company. He was actually selling it to the woman he destroyed. The merger went through in record time. Ethan celebrated in interviews, smiling, calling it a strategic move for growth. But behind that smile, the foundation was cracking. 2 days after the deal, Serenium filed a report with the SEC, exposing every transaction Ethan had falsified. Claire's forensic team had traced the entire $38.6 million trail back to his private accounts. When federal investigators arrived at Virion headquarters, the cameras were waiting. They caught Ethan being escorted out in handcuffs, the same way he'd escorted Claire out 8 months earlier. And that night, every news outlet ran the same headline: Virion CEO arrested in $38 million fraud, whistleblower revealed as former CFO. 2 weeks later, the truth came out. In the SEC's filing, one line changed everything. Majority stakeholder and reporting authority, Claire Donovan. The world gasped. The woman they'd called a criminal now owned the company that had betrayed her. Ethan's empire collapsed overnight. The board resigned in disgrace. Investors cheered the change. Claire walked back into the same building she'd been thrown out of, but this time her name was on the door. She didn't gloat. She didn't give speeches about revenge. She just gathered her employees in the main conference hall, the same one where her career had ended, and said quietly, "I was betrayed by the people I trusted most. But I came back not for revenge, for redemption. For everyone who was used, silenced, or forgotten." There was silence. Then applause. Then tears. In that moment, Claire wasn't just a survivor. She was a symbol. Over the next year, she rebuilt Virion from the ground up. She rehired employees Ethan had fired. She ended exploitative contracts. And she launched an internal ethics initiative that became a model for the entire industry. Under her leadership, the company's stock doubled. Revenue hit record highs. But more than that, people believed in the company again. At the annual meeting, a young analyst approached her. "Ms. Donovan," he said, "I joined because of you. Because you proved integrity still matters." She smiled. "Then my work was worth it." Ethan eventually pleaded guilty to wire fraud and securities manipulation. He was sentenced to 7 years in federal prison. Reporters tried to get Claire's reaction, but she refused to comment. The only statement she ever gave was a single sentence. Justice doesn't always come from courtrooms. Sometimes it comes from consequences. 2 years later, Virion Technologies was named one of Fortune's most ethical companies in America. Claire was featured on the cover, the headline reading, "From Scapegoat to CEO, the woman who rebuilt integrity." When asked what drove her to keep going, she said softly, "They thought they were destroying me. But they were teaching me how to win differently." She paused, then added, "The best revenge isn't ruining someone. It's rebuilding what they broke and thriving." One quiet evening, Claire returned to the Virion lobby after everyone had gone home. The same marble floors. The same echoes. She walked to the glass doors and stood exactly where she'd stood the day she was fired. Outside, the city lights shimmered. She whispered, "I won't ever forget this hallway. Not because it symbolized her fall, but because it marked where she began rising." And that is the story of Claire Donovan. The woman they framed. The woman they erased. The woman who came back to own everything they stole. If you were in her place, would you have done the same? Tell us in the comments below. This story moved you? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Revenge Uncut for more true-style tales of betrayal, justice, and redemption. Because sometimes, the sweetest revenge is success.